Welcome to the Luke Macias Show. There was an amendment that weakened a Texas GOP legislative priority offered by a member named Matt Shaheen, who then voted the next day to oppose stripping that weakening amendment out of the bill, but then went and registered a vote against the amendment that he actually offered, which, if you're as confused as I am, welcome to the legislative process. We're going to dig into whether this amendment even exists and the implications of Matt Shaheen changing his vote, and why the Texas GOP has been putting pressure on taking this amendment out of the bill. Let's get to the show. Everyone here, I think, wants to ban China land ownership of Texas. Some legislation only limits people from being able to buy agriculture land. Some language says that you can't buy commercial property. Some versions of this policy that was offered said you can buy land, but you can't buy it, but you can lease it. Or you can't buy it, you can't lease it, but that's only if you're domiciled in China. All of these words get a little complicated. But ultimately, what is most important and what y'all probably want to know is, where do we stand with Senate Bill 17, which, even as it stands, is a strong and good bill. It is a strong and good bill that was passed out of the House. And that was done because there were a slew of very strengthening amendments offered by Nate Schatzline and Brett Money and Mitch Little and Steve Toth and various different people who were all on the floor working very hard. And even members outside of that group, it's not just the members that offer the amendment. There were dozens of Republicans who were hell-bent on strengthening this bill as much as possible. And that is a very good and positive thing. But early in the debate, the Democrats were really mad because the bill, as it had been drafted, and what it was intended to do, was say that if you're domiciled in China, if your domicile is China, your home is there, but you're temporarily in the United States, you cannot buy land. A good example of this would be a student visa or something like that. And Democrats were really upset. And so they wanted these temporary individuals who are not, their home is in, they're a non-immigrant whose home is in China, who is a member of the CCP, and they are here in the United States for a very short temporary period of time. And Democrats really wanted these people to be able to buy land in Texas. I guess while they're here on a student visa, they might want to buy an industrial park or a 100,000-acre ranch. Who knew that the student visa visitors had such interest in our critical infrastructure? But they needed a Republican to offer this amendment, so they got Matt Shaheen and Angie Chen Button to offer this amendment. And we are just going to go to a 5-minute clip of a debate on the Shaheen amendment between himself and Representative Brett Money. Let's go to this clip.
We would be allowing, under your amendment, people here under a temporary work visa, temporary student visa, even a tourist visa. Is that correct?
Well,
because they would be here legally.
But the bill already, I'm sorry, I think I interrupted you.
Well, they would be here legally, and if they are here legally under your amendment, they would be lawfully present and residing in the United States, and they would be able to purchase, acquire, or hold the interest.
I don't think the amendment is coming across. So I think if I read it, what it talks about is individuals that are not lawfully in the United States. And the examples you're giving me is they're actually here legally. And so what this amendment is saying is, if you're from a country that's hostile to the United States, and you're here illegally, unlawfully, you cannot purchase land. This is what we want. This is
right. But it's a double negative. So if you flip it around, it also means that if you are from a hostile country and you are here lawfully, you are lawfully present and residing, then you may purchase, acquire, and hold the interest.
If you're here lawfully.
Correct.
Yeah.
Under your amendment, if a person is here lawfully.
If somebody's here lawfully, yes, but you have to remember on page 5, line 9, it talks about if you're acting as an agent on behalf of one of the designated countries, then you can't buy the land. So
certainly that needs to be the case. But the fact is, at least my understanding of the reason why we wanted this legislation in the first place is because we don't always know who is acting on behalf of that foreign country. But there's a presumption that if you're still a citizen of that country, that you have more loyalty to that country than you do to our country. If
not necessarily, sir. If I may interrupt you, I gave you an example of a woman that has no love of China, for example. Right. She was tortured by the Chinese.
Right.
And so no, I would say she came to the United States and she's an awesome citizen. So no, I wouldn't agree with you. Now look, if there's bad actors, right? But regardless, if I can answer your question, if there's bad actors in the United States, whether they're here lawfully or unlawfully, this legislation addresses that. Because again, on page 5, it talks about if there's an individual acting as an agent or on behalf of the agent. Then I would draw you to the next section of the bill, section 5.254, where it talks about investigation enforcement by the Attorney General. And there's even a portion of the current statute that talks about law enforcement referrals. So all that to say is, I think we're covered, and quite frankly, this amendment is something that we want. We don't want people here that are unlawfully present in the United States to buy land. So I'm to be a little transparent with you, I'm really confused why you're having an issue with this amendment.
People who are
unlawfully... Do you want people that are here unlawfully to be able to buy land?
No, it already... Okay. There's already a prohibition for people who are... Well, let me back up.
Okay. I think it's important to understand that we don't want people that are here in the United States unlawfully, that are from a country that are hostile to the United States to be able to buy land, and that's what this amendment does. And I'm puzzled over your question.
Then let me make it very clear.
Okay.
My understanding of what we were trying to accomplish with this bill, what the Republican Party of Texas is trying to accomplish, and the people who ran against me...
The Republican Party of Texas should love this.
No.
There's a problem if they don't.
Is that there is a class of people that we are concerned about buying property in Texas.
100%.
People from foreign countries that are hostile to us.
Right.
You are limiting it to only people from foreign countries who are hostile to us who are here illegally.
Sir,
so that anyone who is here legally, who is from a country that is foreign, hostile from us, is now no longer included. And so my question is, we have limited this bill from anyone from these countries, unless they are coming here to be citizens, we have cut it all the way down to only people who are illegally here from those countries.
No.
Yes.
So
that's what your amendment would do.
You can see how Representative Matt Shaheen is trying to act like what his amendment does is say that illegals in our country cannot buy land. But the bill already banned those individuals from not buying land. What his amendment did was say these temporary visa holders, while they're here, can just happen to go shopping and pick up a 100,000-acre ranch. They can just happen to be here on a temporary tourist visa and buy some minerals while they're here. Buy some water rights. Because, when you go to England on a tourist visa for a period of time, you just happen to maybe buy some mineral rights while you're there. It was a weakening of the bill that is a loophole that will be exploited by foreign adversarial nations. If you don't think China now says, wow, we just need to get some people lined up to go be tourists and they can buy a bunch of Texas, they will do that. It is a loophole in the bill. The Republican Party of Texas, a lot of people spoke about the problems with the Shaheen Amendment. And the next day, Representative Brent Money offered an amendment to strip the Shaheen Amendment. Now, the important thing to understand is that on third reading, after the bill has already passed second reading, you need 2/3 to pass an amendment. So you're not going to get it passed. But the reason this amendment being offered was key is that it was a chance for Republicans to get the issue right. When Brent Money originally opposed the Shaheen Amendment and other people opposed the Shaheen Amendment, there were only 19 Republicans who actually voted against it. 19 Republicans. And I'm going to tell you who those are. The Republicans that opposed the Shaheen Amendment originally, and there were actually a few other people that went in after the vote and changed their vote once they understood what the Shaheen Amendment did. So let's talk about this. Ashby, DeRazio, Hayes, Hopper, Kerwin, Lowe, Lozano, McLaughlin, Money, Morgan, Alcott, Oliverson, Paul, Richardson, Schofield, Schoolcraft, Schaffner, Slauson, and Tinderholt. Those 19 people, when the board lit up, said, I may know. Schatzline and Harrison were absent at the time. So as people went in and registered their votes, you saw Ben Bumgardner, David Cook, Caroline Harris-Davila, Brian Harrison, Will Metcalf, Nate Schatzline, Valerie Swanson, Steve Toth, Ellen Troxclair, Cody Vasut, and Wes Verdell all go in and say, hey, I didn't realize what we were voting on. I'm registering a no vote, which does make sense. But the strange thing is that one other person also ended up going and registering a no vote on this amendment, and it's Matt Shaheen himself. And this story broke last night at Texas Scorecard. Brandon Waltons broke this story, which has gotten a ton of traction since last night. I've had text messages and calls and all sorts of conversations happening. But here's the thing. The amendment got offered. The next day, Brent Money offered an amendment to strip it, which every single Republican voted for, except for Matt Shaheen and Angie Chen Button. Let's go to Representative Money's 4-minute layout of his amendment to get rid of the Shaheen Amendment. Let's go to this clip.
Mr. Speaker, members, I know we had a long debate last night, and the more I thought about this issue, the more I became aware that the policy that we discussed, particularly surrounding the Shaheen Amendment, may have been confusing to some of you. It was even more confusing than what I thought. And I don't want to rehash everything. I want to take just a few minutes, reinforce my concerns, and give the members of the body an opportunity to vote on the policy they think would be best. Just to be clear, the original language of this bill, which I'm trying to reintroduce, that was in both the House and the Senate versions of this bill, says that an individual is prohibited from owning land in Texas if they are domiciled in a designated country. For clarity, that means that their home is in a designated country. They might have a temporary visa here, but this is not their home, and they're still under the jurisdiction of that hostile foreign government. I don't believe that those individuals should be able to buy land in Texas, and neither did the House or Senate author of this bill. Members, yesterday I heard a lot of people talk about their doctors, their neighbors, people they go to church with. And for the vast majority of them, they are here on immigrant visas where they are legal permanent residents, and they would not have applied to this bill. Our federal government issues two classes or types of visas to foreigners. There are immigrant visas, which are issued to people who are seeking to become legal permanent residents. And there are non-immigrant visas, which are temporary visas, which require an applicant to plan to return to their home country, even as soon as their visa has expired. These include student visas, temporary work visas, tourist visas, and other kinds of visas. The intent of this program is to allow foreign nationals to visit our country for the purpose that is specified in their visa, and not to immigrate to our country. If someone is here on a non-immigrant visa, that means that Donald Trump's State Department has determined that it is okay for them to visit our country. It does not mean that it is okay for them to stay. I want to reiterate that. Donald Trump's State Department has determined that it is okay for them to visit temporarily and work or visit or go to school in our country, but that means that at the end of that term, they have to go back to their home country when that expires. I do not think that we should allow someone that the State Department has said cannot stay in our country to be able to buy Texas land, but that was the effect of yesterday's Shaheen amendment. All of the other amendments yesterday strengthened this bill, and this amendment specifically weakened it in a way that hostile foreign actors would prefer. I want to be clear. Under the new language, a Chinese or Russian or Iranian or North Korean resident who lawfully comes to the United States on a vacation or a student visa would be able to legally purchase 1,000 acres of farmland next to an Air Force base. I don't think that's what many of my Republican colleagues intended. Unfortunately, it also means that a company that is owned by this class of people would not be barred from purchasing property in our state as long as one American citizen or lawful resident has ownership in this company. It's my sincere belief that our enemies will, as the current bill reads after the Shaheen Amendment, continue to direct their citizens and people who are domiciled in their country to acquire land in the United States, concealing the nature of their relationship with these individuals and counting any who are caught as merely the cost of doing business. There can be no doubt that this language materially and practically limits the extent of the ban on hostile foreign land ownership. It's not what the Texas Senate passed. It's not what this bill author proposed to this body, and it's not what our voters expect of us. And I ask you to vote with me to remove the language from the bill.
So the next day, he makes this argument. Republicans generally go, okay, yeah, it makes sense. Whatever that conversation was on day one was a little confusing. And Representative Shaheen was trying to imply that if you opposed his amendment, you wanted illegal people in the United States to buy Texas land. No, not true. Your amendment was saying, here's essentially what the Shaheen Amendment said. It said there are some Chinese nationals that can't buy Texas that we want to buy Texas. That's what it did. It said we don't have enough Chinese nationals who can buy Texas. We need to expand so that more Chinese nationals can buy Texas.
Hey folks, Chris Salcedo here. I've got something special for you, the Salcedo Storm podcast. As your friendly, liberty-loving Latino, I bring you a mix of engaging discussions to help us fight for our state and our conservative values. It's the perfect way to stay informed and engaged in what's happening around you. So, what are you waiting for? Don't miss out on the storm of information and entertainment coming your way. The Salcedo Storm podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts.
And so once all the Republicans kind of recognize this, they go, yeah, we're taking that out. Except for two members, by the way. Matt Shaheen and Angie Chen Button, who offered the amendment, voted to keep their amendment on. The two members and every single Democrat. And then Representative Shaheen went and changed his own vote on his own amendment that he voted for, that he offered, that he voted against stripping out. But yet he actually voted against from the beginning? This is where the changing your vote on the record gets comical. I understand why some members do change their vote. And I'll give you a charitable reason for you to consider. There are members that are working on all sorts of policy all the time, and it doesn't all happen directly on the House floor. So let's say a member has a conservative bill that has passed the House and is in the Senate, and somebody tells them, hey, Senator so-and-so has some concerns about your bill, and we need his vote to get the bill out of committee. That House member might go, okay, I need to run over to the Senate, which is just on the other side of the Capitol. It takes about 2 minutes, 3 minutes to walk there. But you go, I'm going to go run over there. I'm going to flag Senator so-and-so down. I'm going to ask them to talk about my bill. We're going to have a 10 or 15 minute conversation. I'm going to understand his concerns. I'm going to get what he's saying. I'm going to get him some answers, bring my staff over, start working on finding a solution so we can get this conservative policy moving forward. Now, in the course of your time over there in the Senate, there might be anywhere from 1 to 0 to 10 votes that occur. And so your desk mate is going to be voting. Now, members will often have their planned votes, right? But that's only on the bills, not the amendments, because you don't know what amendments are being offered. So if you run over there and you come back and your desk mate goes, oh, there was this Shaheen amendment. He said it was about making sure illegals couldn't buy land. So I voted yes. I voted yes for you too. Oh my gosh. And then all of a sudden they start reading the amendment and they go, I got to go register a no. I would have never voted for that. So those are the different reasons, right? I was not in the House. I changed my vote. There are actually a couple times where machines malfunction, but that usually is not what's happening. The point being, though, when Matt Shaheen goes, everyone knows what Matt Shaheen planned on doing. It actually says, when record number 1848 was taken, I was shown voting yes. I intended to vote no. Matt Shaheen's statement says he intended to vote against his own amendment that he offered. But the next day, he voted against taking it out. Very confusing. If you're as confused as I am, welcome to the legislative process. This is how things get a little hairy. Here's the good news. Lois Kolkhorst decided to take Senate Bill 17 to conference, which means she didn't accept it as it came over. They're going to conference. And I believe they are working on taking the Shaheen Amendment out to make sure that these people who are on a student visa can't go buy a ranch or a nuclear power plant or whatever else these student or tourists evidently are really interested in shopping for while they're here. So that is great news. And Republicans and conservatives should be appreciative of the work being done. Let me also talk about another debate that happened yesterday. This was Senate Bill 646. Now, Senate Bill 646 is a loan repayment plan. It says that if you are a mental health professional who wants to go into our schools and be a counselor, then we will pay off your student loan. That is the simple policy position by this bill. Now, this is opposed by the Republican Party platform, which opposes loan forgiveness programs. We're not here to pay off your student loans. If you go to college and you rack up $80,000 of debt while somebody else goes and gets a job and works hard and saves their money, instead of going to get indoctrinated for 4 years by some leftist college, we don't believe that that person who didn't go to college and didn't rack up $80,000 of debt should pay off your student loan. But not only does it do that, it specifically does it for mental health professionals who, many of whom are socially transitioning children with radical transgender ideology. And Representative Steve Toth brought this to the attention of the chamber, and the entire chamber stopped because this Democrat bill that was moving forward was all of a sudden being questioned. And within a minute, there were like 4 or 5 Democrats at the back mic and 4 or 5 Democrats down at the front mic, and everybody was scurrying around while Steve Toth was just saying, ladies and gentlemen, this bill not only does something we disagree with from a policy perspective and pays off loans, but it also does it for professionals who are, we know they are socially transitioning kids. Not every single one of them, but quite a few of them. And Democrats lost their minds. And they did things that if Republicans did, they would immediately be, gavelled down by the speaker and leadership and told that they were completely inappropriate. At one point, Representative Brent Money got up to speak against this bill, and Democrats surrounded him and just stared at him. I have not seen this happen all session, so I have to at least go to the clip so you have an opportunity. For those of you listening, because the vast majority of people that follow the show are listeners to the show, you're going to hear a speech given by Representative Money. And what you need to understand is that while he's giving this speech, there are like 4 Democrats huddled right around him, staring at him. And again, I've never seen this happen, but they're actually just trying to intimidate him from speaking, right? It's this like bully tactic of, we're going to mean mug you until you just quiet yourself. Actually, for those of you watching this, just look at this picture right now of Synfronia Thompson. She's so mad at Steve Toth, who's speaking against the bill, that she's just walked up to him and started yelling at him. And so, Mike Alcott and other conservatives sitting there with Steve Toth to back him up, and Democrats are just losing it. Brent Money decides to get up and speak against the bill, and we're just going to go to this 3-minute clip real quick. Let's go to the clip.
Mr. Speaker, members, I'm going to keep this short. This bill is about the repayment of student loans with taxpayer money. Something that I think most of the Republicans in this body opposed when President Biden tried to do this multiple times. It is using taxpayer money to repay the loans of certain people. And let's talk about what we are limiting this to. You want to stand with me, Miss T? All right. We talked about the Texas Counseling Association. Texas Counseling Association is one of the organizations that helps to train these school counselors. And I had a school in my district, a very Republican rural district, where counselors were complaining that they went to training, and when they came back from the training, they told their superintendents, they're teaching us about gender-affirming care. And I went and met with that university, state university, and talked with the dean of the education department, with the school counseling department, and said, why are you teaching gender-affirming care to our students, to the students who are school counselors teaching our students? And they said, because the Texas Counseling Association, and they gave me this letter. I'm going to read a part of it. Supporting and providing access to gender-affirming care for transgender children promotes health and well-being. Skipping down. The gender-affirmative model of care includes obtaining a child's assent, not the parent, before engaging in any medications or surgical procedures. Meaning, if the child assents to medication and surgical procedures, they should be able to do so. And then it says, gender-affirming model of care is based on the latest scientific evidence which demonstrates families' acceptance of gender identity and providing gender-affirmative care are associated with improved well-being and mental health. These are the kinds of things that are being taught in classes to student counselors that we are now going to ask our taxpayers to pay their student loans. That's what this is. We're not paying the student loans of people who are accountants, people who are even teachers, people who are nurses and firemen. We are paying school counselors who have gotten this kind of treatment, and we are singling them out for student loan repayment. I oppose any student loan repayment by the taxpayers, but I certainly oppose one from an organization
Mr. Speaker?
that provides gender-affirming care and thinks that is...
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes.
Senate Bill 646 ended up getting pulled from the calendar. It may come up today. It might come up within an hour of me even recording this show. So it may pass, it may not. We will see what Republicans do, whether they decide to pass this Biden-era loan forgiveness program that also could have you as a taxpayer paying for somebody's loan while they're sitting in their office trying to turn a 4-year-old boy into a girl psychologically. So hopefully that doesn't happen, and I'm grateful that conservatives stepped up. If you think Brent Money got a lot of airtime today, it's because he's been standing up a lot, and that's not a criticism of many other Republican conservatives who have been. I think we have dozens who have done a lot of fighting for conservative policy this session, and I'm really grateful for them. Yesterday with Brent Money's speech and how enraged Democrats were, Steve Toth led that fight, but then you also saw him stand up during this China land debate, and without members, let me just be clear, without some champions who are going to get up and force the discussion to happen on a policy level about these issues, the grassroots won't be able to build the momentum they need to strengthen policy. And so we need to applaud the courageous work of conservatives who are on the floor every day trying to fight for conservative policy. And it is crazy when you have somebody work to weaken a bill and then go and register a vote against their own weakening amendment. It's pretty crazy. Anyways, there's a lot going on. I could cover a ton more stuff today, but I think I'm going to leave it there. I will try to continue to keep y'all apprised. The next week, you will see a substantial amount of policy pass or die. And as the session closes, we'll be able to focus on what good it got accomplished and what conservative policy was not passed. The one bill I'm watching in the Senate right now is actually a ban on in-state tuition This has been a policy position the Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick has held since he ran for office. He actually ran as the only Republican who opposed in-state tuition for illegal immigrants, which is true. Jerry Patterson, Todd Staples, and David Dewhurst all believed that illegals should have in-state tuition. Well, unfortunately, they still do. But the Texas Senate is looking to advance that bill. They have not, but it has passed out of the K through 16 committee, and hopefully we will see it out of the Senate soon enough to be able to quickly make its way through the Texas House of Representatives if the Higher Education Committee under Terry Wilson's leadership is willing to work quickly and swiftly on that policy. So that's one thing I'm watching on the Senate side. There's a lot of bills on the House side that we're watching and keeping tabs on, and I wish we could talk about all of them, but I think we've covered enough today, and we will come back to you next week. May God bless you, and may God bless the great state of Texas.